everyone, this is the tree tutorial for the MMO Paint and Sip. I'm gonna break down this video into a few different recordings that follow the steps that are on the printed instructions that came with your kit. So this is part one, and we're predominantly gonna start by painting our blue background. And we're gonna do that by mixing a tiny amount of lamp black with small amounts of violet and ultramarine. We've got our lamp black, our violet, and our ultramarine. And I'm gonna put all three of those together in one of the spots on our little paint palette here. I'm gonna use more ultramarine than anything else because that is the dominant color here. But it might take a little trial and error to get the color balance that we're looking for. And when you're doing this, you can get it as close to or as far from what you see in the picture, or really make it your own and do something completely different. I'm gonna start with that, and we're gonna go ahead and mix this with our large brush because that's what we're gonna start painting with. And we're gonna see what color we get here. All right, and I'm gonna say that I put in way too much lamp black, so we're gonna dump in a whole bunch more of the ultramarine. And since I'm not really going to need the ultramarine for any other part of the painting, I'm going to feel free to use a whole bunch of it. Now, when you're mixing your colors here, don't feel like you have to get it perfectly blended together with no streaks. Because what's going to happen is as you go to paint, when you have some of those streaks in there, especially for a background like the one we're about to create, this is going to give you a little bit of highlights and lowlights naturally mixed in, which will give you some good depth of color. So you want to load up your brush pretty good. And then because of the texture of this painting, if you look at the picture, everything's kind of done in circles. So we're going to paint in a circular motion, starting from around the moon and just going around. All right, that is definitely still a little darker than I want it, but it's okay because we are going to be putting in some white highlights later on. Now, as you paint over, you're also going to see that we're going to cover up some of the sketch lines that are there, but if you spread it out a little bit, I don't know if you can see in the recording, you can still sort of see where those lines are. Just going around in circles where I have the paint a little thicker, I'm thinning it out. And see how nice a texture this is giving us already? So now you do want to stop short of the base of your tree here. We're going to leave this section white. And I'm just kind of going back in to make sure I got those spots in between the main tree branches there also. Oops. I'm actually gonna thin this out just a little bit with my water, which I forgot to fill a water cup, so I'm gonna pause the video and go ahead and do that. Okay, and now I'm back with my water cup, and I'm just gonna take really just the teensiest bit of water on my brush to just loosen this up a little bit because it actually is drying very quickly. And as we get to the larger areas here, I want to be able to still spread it nicely. And still kind of going in that rounded motion. Painting this background part is gonna probably take the longest, or it's the longest singular portion of the painting because it is dominant on so much of the background here. And right now I'm just kind of smoothing over where some of my earlier lines were a little bit choppy. And if you go a little bit into the outline where the tree is, that's not a big deal because that is going to get painted over in predominantly black later on. So we can clean that up when we get there. It's much bigger swirls now as we get to where, if this was a completed circle, it would go up and around the canvas like that. Once again, I'm not quite getting the feel that I want. It's feeling a little thick on my brush again, so I'm going to take a little more water and just smooth it all out. And continuing these curved lines around here. And now as we're kind of getting all the way down to the base, our curve is going to be slightly less perceptible because if we imagine the circle that would be created from this low down, it would be really wide, and so the angle wouldn't be as severe here. And this really is so much easier now that I added a little bit more water to my painting. You don't, or to my paint rather. You don't want to add too much because that'll thin it out too much, but a little bit, just so that it kind of flows nicely. And you're gonna come down to this line here, and that's gonna be the end of where your blue goes. And we're gonna come a little darker and thicker as we come across that bottom line. So I'm just gonna load my brush up with a little more paint so it's a little bit more saturated down here. My easel keeps falling, which is why I'm holding the other side. We're gonna have better easels if the paint and sip. That'll be a little bit more stable for us to work with than these built-in ones are. All right, now we're gonna come around the other side and finish the other half of the painting. Now you could have continued your kind of circles all the way around while you're going. I obviously focused on the one side, but part of that is because I am standing to the side of my painting also, so that I'm not blocking what I'm doing too much. And if you happen to run out of paint for this section, just go ahead and mix some more. It does not have to match exactly because we're going for a textured background here, and we're going to be layering more whites and maybe a little bit more purples on top of this too. I lost my curve a little bit around the side, so I'm gonna just go ahead and put some curve strokes on top of what I've already done to regain that feeling. once again, we're going to go a little heavier on the brush around the base of this line. And then I have it's kind of one dark spot over here, so I'm putting just a teeny bit of water on my brush. I'm actually dabbing it off so it's not too bad, but then I'm going to go back in and smooth out that line a little bit more. Because I don't want the color quite so concentrated in that area. All right, that's step one.